All right, 9.2 homework practice, dealing with special right triangles. So right off the bat, number 3 you see is a 45 and a 90. That means this is a 45, 45, 90. So remember, always know where the hypotenuse is, okay? The legs are equal, so that's 7. And then all you do is multiply by radical 2. So you have 7 radical 2, and that's your answer. Okay? When you see on this number 4 that these are the same, you know you have a 45, 45, 90. So all we're going to do is, again, multiply by radical 2. So 5 radical 2 times radical 2. Remember what happens here. A radical times itself just becomes that number. So 5 times 2 is 10. So this is 10 right here. Again, we have equal sides, but this time we have the hypotenuse. So we're going this way, which means we're getting smaller. We're going to divide by radical 2. So 3 radical 2 divided by radical 2, those just simply cancel, and we end up with legs that are 3. All right, number 6, you know you have a 45, 45, 90. We're going to go this way, which means divide by radical 2. Now in this one, there's nothing to cancel, so we have to rationalize. So we have to do that radical 2 over radical 2. And then on the top, we simply get 9 radical 2. On the bottom, that just becomes 2, square root of 4. The 9 and the 2 don't cancel, so this is simply 9 radical 2 over 2. You could also write it 9 halves radical 2. Either one, those are the same thing. All right, now number 7, we have 30, 60, 90 triangles. Again, we have 30, 90, so that makes this 60. So identify your sides. So this is your small side, okay? This is the medium side, and this is your hypotenuse. That's the largest side, okay? So it's the easiest thing to go from the small side to the other leg. This way, we multiply by radical 3. So x here is simply 9 radical 3. Then going from the small to the large, the hypotenuse, we simply just double it. 9 times 2, whoops, don't know what happened there, 18. Okay, number 8, what side do we have here? We have the medium side. You never want to go to the hypotenuse from the medium, you always want to go to the small. Okay, which means we're going to divide by the radical 3. Well, that's nice because the radical 3's just cancel. 3 radical 3 divided by radical 3. This just ends up being 3. And then going here, you just double it. So that's 6. You always want to try to work from the small side. Number 9, it helps to identify the small side. So again, it's easier to go from the hypotenuse, the larger side, to the small side. Always know where that is. So I'm going to go from here to here, and you just divide by 2, which makes this 12. And then all you do is tack on the radical 3, 12 radical 3. All right, what side do we have here? Well, we have the hypotenuse. We always want to go to the small side, which is this one. So we're going to go from here to here. Okay, again, it's just divide by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, and the radical 3 just stays. And then going from here to the medium side, it's times radical 3. All right, so 6 radical 3 times radical 3. You simply get 6 times 3. The radicals cancel. And that makes us 18 over here. Pretty simple patterns. You just got to get used to it. Okay. All right. Sketch some figures. So the side length of an equilateral triangle. So equilateral triangle, try to make it look equal. That's pretty bad, but you know, you get the gist. These are all equal, okay? The side length is 5. So that's 5, that's 5, that's 5. Okay? Find the length of the altitude. That means you're coming straight down the middle right here. I don't know why I just drew a 5 there. I meant to draw a right angle. My brain got confused. So when we do that, even though this doesn't look good because I didn't draw it that great, this altitude is a bisector. So we have 2.5. Okay? Now, there's a couple ways to go about this. You could do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay? That's one way to do it. But a quicker way is to notice that if this is an equilateral triangle, all of these angles are 60. Okay? But the altitude splits it into two 30s. Okay? So that makes the 2.5 the small side. And we're trying to find the medium side. So how do we go to that? It's just simply 2.5 times radical 3. That's 2.5, not 2 times 5. Okay? And if we type that in the calculator, because we were trying to get an actual estimate here, it says round to the nearest tenth, we get 4.3. That's the altitude. It's also the height. Centimeters. Okay, number 14. Square. Try to do my best. That's horrible. It says the perimeter, the distance around is 36. So we divide 36 by 4. That means we have 9, 9, 9, 9. Find the length of the diagonal. Well, if you remember from earlier, if this is a square and these are all 90s, that diagonal is a bisector. So this is a 45, 45, 90. So we're going from the leg to the hypotenuse, which means we simply do 9 radical 2. And we type in 9 radical 2 in our calculator. And we get 12.72, 12.7 inches. All right, 15, 16. Find the area. Remember, area of a rectangle, area of a rectangle is length times width. But we don't have that. We have the diagonal. So remember, how do we get from here to here? We divide by radical 2. So we have to rationalize. That gives me 8 radical 2 over 2. That simplifies 4 radical 2. So each of the legs is 4 radical 2. That means length times width is 4 radical 2 times 4 radical 2. So we do outside numbers, that's 16. Inside numbers, that's 2. So 32 square feet. All right? So on this parallelogram, we need to find the height. Okay? So this is 30 degrees right here. We have 60. So we have the hypotenuse of 4, which means this is 2. All right? Because going from the hypotenuse to the small side, divide by 2. So that means this, you just simply multiply by radical 3. So length times width, base times height, there's that. There's this. Area is 5 times 2 radical 3, which means 10 radical 3. And round to the nearest tenth, that's 17.3 meters squared. And last but not least, going to bring this drawing out a little bit. We have 284 feet here. That's supposed to be an 8. Each half of the drawbridge is about 284 feet long. How high does it have to be when x is 30, 45, and 60? Okay. So I'm going to draw 3 of these. They're not going to be to scale. So we're going to put a 30 here. This one's going to be a 45, and this one's going to be a 60. Obviously, they are not, again, not drawn to scale. Okay? And then we're going to do our math. So from the hypotenuse to the small side on a 30, it's just divide by 2. So that's 142. On the 284, on a 45, we're going to divide by radical 2. So that's 284 divided by radical 2. Rationalize. So that's 284 radical 2 divided by 2. And we simplify. So that's 142 radical 2. And for 60, we want to first go to the small side, which again, this is not drawn to scale. I apologize. So we divide by 2. So again, even though it's not drawn to scale, this is the small side. Okay, so that's going to be the hypotenuse divided by 2, which is 142. And then going here, we simply multiply by radical 3. So that's going to be 142 radical 3. And that's it.